Stepmom wants me and my sister to leave so she can move her 5 kids in, but Dad's reaction changed everything. Just to tell you all, this happened a long time ago. It was when I was still in high school. Anyways, my mother was a very hard-working lady. She took care of me and my sister all the time. She also put a lot of focus on our education and valued our education over everything else. My father, on the other hand, was not a really nice guy. He had a bad temper and could not hold any of his jobs for a long time. My mother had a constant source of income, but my father mostly had his inheritance as his source of income. You can say that he is one of those men who thinks crying makes you weak and man should be the head of the house. Since I was the only boy in the family, he would often give me hard punishments every time I would make even small mistakes. Because I had a nice body shape with the necessary height and weight, my father wanted me to be a football player. He would make me go for runs every morning and do drills every day. At first I did enjoy football, but due to the constant pressure I was under because of my father, I started hating it. One day I told him that I had had enough of him trying to control me and bossing me around. I told him that I was going to quit playing football. This turned into a huge fight. My mother supported me and said that I did not have to play football if I was not willing to. After that fight, my parents started arguing almost every day for a month. After about a month, my mother said that she was going to take me and my sister on a trip for a few days. I asked if our father was also coming on the trip with us, but she said that he was busy with some work so he would not be joining us. My sister and I enjoyed the trip a lot along with our mother. After returning home, we saw that our father was not in the house. His things were also missing. I asked my mother what was happening. She sat down along with me and my sister and said that they had gotten a divorce. Apparently, while we were gone, my father had moved out of the place and shifted to a new place. I did not show it at that time because I had to be strong, at least for the sake of my sister, but I was heartbroken. The concept of divorce was foreign to me. Almost all the couples in our family were happily married. So it was a huge shock to me when my mother announced that they had gotten a divorce. There was nothing I could do after that. My parents had already made the decision, so all I could do was follow the court's order. After the divorce, things got worse for me and my sister. It was very annoying to have to keep moving from one house to another every few months. My sister and I hated going to our father's place. 3 months after the divorce, my father started dating a new woman. At first she was nice, but gradually her real side would come out every time my father would not be around. You can only imagine my horror when he announced that he was going to marry the woman right after 2 months of dating. I tried to convince my mother to not send me and my sister over to that house ever again because our father was getting married again. But she said that if we were not going to go over to his place, he could gain full custody of me and my sister. Even though we did not want to go, we were forced to go. After getting married, my father's new wife moved in with my father. When my sister and I went over to their house, we saw that our new stepmother had 5 kids of her own. And let me just get this clear, most of her kids were just like her. At first I thought that they were just being awkward, but later I realized that except for her oldest son, all of her children were spoiled brats. And you know what was the most surprising thing? My father actually tolerated the nasty attitudes of her children. He was also sweet to them. My father had never been sweet to me and my sister, but he was a completely different man with his stepkids. Like I mentioned already, all our other step-siblings except for the oldest one were nasty. They would often bully me and my sister and call us names whenever they would see us. I tried my best to protect my sister, but could not do much. When the bullying was getting annoying, I told my mother about it. This then turned into a fight between the adults. After I told my mother about it, my stepmother became furious and yelled at me. She said that I was just a liar and was trying to mess with her kids. My father punished me and made me and my sister write "I am a liar and I must not lie" 1,000 times each. Things like that got more common and I was constantly being treated badly. So here's another thing. My father's place was not really that big, so all of my stepmother's kids could not fit in the house. Also, her kids mostly stayed at her previous husband's place as he had a stable source of income. My stepmother was not working at that time. So the court gave custody of all the 5 children to her ex-husband. My sister and I only met them when my stepmother would have them over. But then, the ex-husband contacted her and told her that he was going to have a new family soon and did not want his kids from his previous marriage with him. My stepmother agreed to let all her 5 kids move in with her. But as there was less room, it looked impossible to fit everyone in. At this, my stepmother started forcing me and my sister to stay in one room and clearing other rooms. When there was still no place, she said that it was better to throw us out. One day when my sister and I were staying at our father's place and my father was not there, my stepmother came up to us and told us to leave the house. We were both confused. She asked us to leave the house so that all of her 5 kids could fit in. When our father came back home, I told him what his wife had told us. My father confronted my stepmother. This led to a huge fight between them. They argued for the whole night, and then my father said that since he was the owner of the house, he was the one who would take any decisions. He decided that my stepmother's television room, and yes, she had a television room all by herself just so she could watch TV, would be turned into a room for one of her kids. Just when we thought that we had our first victory, things only turned worse. Like I mentioned previously, 4 of the siblings were disastrous. They were very hostile towards us. We kept on telling our mother to take us away, but she refused to do anything. Once one of my step-siblings hurt my sister so badly that she had to be admitted to the hospital. After that incident with my sister, our mother finally realized how grave the situation was and fought for our full custody. After my mother won our full custody, we moved to a different place. By that time I had developed depression and my sister had really bad anxiety. So, it's been about 10 years since we left our father's place. Recently he contacted me and demanded, not requested or asked, but demanded me to send some money to him because he needed to buy a car. Am I the a-hole for not sending him money? What should I do? Shall I send him some money? Update 1. I did not expect to get such a huge response from people. Like most of you suggested, I did not send him any money. He was the reason why both me and my sister had depression and anxiety at such a young age. He had caused us a lot of pain, so I did not send him any money. Update 2. Initially I did not think about updating, but something happened recently. About a week ago, my father showed up in front of my front door. He was drunk and punched me a few times. He demanded me money to buy a car again. He entered the house and started flipping all the things. He did not stop and even tried to attack my wife. We called the cops and he was arrested. At first I thought of not letting him stay in jail, but then again he did a lot of harm to both me and my sister before, so I wanted him to be punished. A few days ago, I came to know that my stepmother had divorced my father. I met up with the oldest son of my stepmother, the only one who was nice to me and my sister, and he told me that a few years after we left, my father became very alcoholic. There were times when he would even hit his stepkids once or twice. This continued until one day my stepmother caught my father cheating on her. My stepmother divorced him and he was in the jail for a few months for child abuse. After divorcing my father, my stepmother married another guy and some of his siblings lived with them, but the oldest 2 were of legal age by then, so they lived on their own. My stepbrother apologized for not being able to stop all the bullying his siblings were involved in. I forgave him. After that day we became close again. He is really nice. My wife and I recently had dinner with his family, he, his wife and his son. I, 38 female, have always collected dolls, and have about 300 now: Living Dead dolls, American Girl, Monster High, Reborn, Madame Alexander, BJDs, Antiques. They're in every room of my house except the bathrooms. I don't intend to buy any more, because I've filled up all the places I can reasonably put dolls. I am not a hoarder, they're arranged very neatly and I keep them clean. Do they creep people out? Yes. Do I care? No. But my brother, 29, has always hated them. Last week, he came over with his 7-year-old daughter, uninvited. I generally don't allow children in my home, but I make an exception for my niece, who's very well behaved for her age. Like me, she's autistic, and we both love dolls. She's allowed to hold, not play with, certain dolls under my supervision, and we watch Monster High movies/webisodes together when I babysit. I also buy her dolls of her own and encourage her to bring them over. Since they came over unexpectedly, she didn't bring her own dolls. I let her hold my Jackson Jekyll doll, and my brother said I should just give it to her, since she likes the character in the webisodes. I politely told him no, as the doll is one of my favorites and has been discontinued. He became very irritated, saying I was being selfish and childish, and said I shouldn't care about a boring, ugly doll, and finally accused me of hoarding. I took the doll back and told him to leave. Since then, our other siblings have been texting me, saying I should just give my niece the doll. I have refused for 3 reasons. She doesn't actually want it, as she understands that my dolls aren't toys. It happens to be one of my favorite dolls, and I have a whole setup on my bookshelf where I have it, and my whole Hyde doll with Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Mary Reilly, Hyde by Daniel Levine, and Unforgivable Stories. Frankie Stein is with Frankenstein, The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, and Pride and Prometheus, if anyone was curious. My siblings say my reasoning is childish and petty, and I'm starting to feel like I should just give her the doll so they'll stop harping on it. Am I the a-hole? I have been invited to my friend's house last night for dinner after we haven't seen us for almost a year. Their children are 7 and 13, and the 13-year-old daughter is from his previous relationship. The mother is out of the picture, they don't know where she is and they haven't seen her since the breakup. He remarried and they have had a son now 7. It has been a rough 2 years for these friends of mine, and they have been on and off jobs, needed to change apartment and downgraded quite a bit. I have been helping out already with single payments for utility, insurance and the odd small medical emergency they had. Their daughter has had the dream to attend a certain school and there is a yearly fee to pay. This is not the US, so it's only a couple of thousand a year, which is a lot anyway. I know she wants to go there and have encouraged her to do the scholarship route as they are eligible and just need to fill out some forms. At least they'll get a huge discount, if not an entire scholarship. She has started at that school, but the parents haven't paid the fee yet and, because of their own shortcoming, haven't filed any papers. They are working a lot of hours, but it is possible, or at least sent the babysitter or even me to the school to give the papers, but they didn't. Now yesterday they painted this picture of sadness and being the victim of the world, and I didn't buy it. The daughter started to cry and they told me I am hindering her development and it would be just borrowed money until next year. I kind of feel I won't get that money back ever, and it also feels they use me as their backup option. It really does feel like they slack off on purpose. I very openly told them that I do not care and that this doesn't fall into my responsibility. He then added that I easily could pay for it, and I agreed, but I still won't. I was very frank during that discussion, and it seems my honesty was a bit too much for them. We have been friends since childhood, but these fees aren't news and they had a lot of time to prepare for it, save up, or even ask earlier. During the very quiet last glass of wine I contemplated and offered a monthly payback plan, starting January next year, just to see their reaction, to be honest. I think it is a fair option. It'll solve the issue for now and they can decide how much to pay me back each month. They told me they'd think about it, and I received message today that I am an a-hole for putting them in a situation of even greater department and that I am playing with them, knowing their situation, putting even more pressure on them. I called up the school to inquiry and they also offer various plans to pay, so it very much seems my friends simply wanted me to pay school. Anyway, as I am curious to know if I am the a-hole. Am I the a-hole? A friend can't afford his daughter's admission fee, asks me to pay for it, I refuse, find out they could pay the school monthly, they still act like I am the a-hole.